Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 9th. Today, we celebrate a forgotten Westchester nurseryman and entrepreneur who pioneered the mail-order plant business. And we'll also learn about the Russian botanist who made a startling discovery from the sap of diseased tobacco plants. We'll salute the Welsh poet who died on this day in 1953 after drinking 18 straight martinis. We grow that garden library with a really lovely book on garden design. It's one of my favorites. And then we'll wrap things up with some words on the natural world from an American astronomer. But first, I just want to invite you to head on over to the Daily Gardener website. You can find it at thedailygardener.org. And once you're there, look on the right-hand side and you'll see a place where you can subscribe to the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. This is a free Friday digest of the week's most interesting and inspiring profiles, poems, books, gifts, and of course, botanical sparks. Plus, every week I share a little bit about me, what's going on in my garden, what I'm up to, what I'm reading. And in addition to the newsletter, if you subscribe, you get a chance to win a book from the Grow That Garden Library bookshelf right in my own home. So go ahead and sign up for the free Friday newsletter over at the website, thedailygardener.org. And real quick, I just want to share this little reminder that while you're at home, you can listen to the show on your smart speaker just by asking Alexa or Google to play the latest episode of the Daily Gardener podcast. And she will. It's just that easy. And don't forget to hit subscribe on whatever you're listening to this podcast on, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher. Whatever podcast player you happen to be using, those subscriptions really matter. All right, here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the Westchester, Pennsylvania nurseryman, entrepreneur, and Quaker, Josiah Hoops, who was born on this day, November 9th, 1832. Josiah loved nature from an early age. As a young man, he had a desire to propagate and sell plants. After his 30th birthday, Josiah built a greenhouse on his father's property, and within a few years, Josiah's growing customer base prompted him to start his own nursery, and he named it Cherry Hill. Over time, Cherry Hill Nurseries grew to be known as Hoop's Brother and Thomas, or HBT, after Josiah recruited his brother Abner and his neighbor, an accountant named George B. Thomas. With its gravelly loam soil, Westchester has cultivated some important botanical figures through the years. The Westchester botanists David Townsend and Dr. William Darlington were lifelong friends of Josiah's. And together, the three men founded Marshall Square Park, named after the colonial botanist Humphrey Marshall. The three men also worked on cataloging the trees and plants in their home county. Now, for their efforts, the town appointed all three men to form the very first park committee. Later, Josiah, who was younger than the other men, was tasked with improving the park. Josiah added flower beds and walking paths, as well as an extraordinary amount of, quote, resting stations. A history of the park shared that at one point, the park had 70 benches, 50 more than today's total count. And today in Josiah's hometown, the 16-acre Hoops Park is named for Josiah, and he served as one of that park's original park supervisors. In addition to his local efforts, Josiah became nationally known when he developed a way to ship his nursery stock by railroad. Using moss and paper to wrap his plants, Josiah began to hire salesmen to market his plants and trees across the country. After securing a contract with the federal government, Josiah's nursery shipped trees and shrubs to all the national cemeteries. Within a decade, HBT became the largest commercial grower in America. And before the turn of the century, HBT was shipping plants to Europe, Australia, and the West Indian Islands. They even had a sales representative stationed in Mexico. By 1913, the nursery occupied over 1,000 acres, and it even offered a pleasure garden with a boardwalk for the locals, complete with manicured shrubs in the shape of spears and a Maltese cross. One newspaper reported, "There is no more attractive place in our borough than the grounds of this firm, including their private residences adjoining, and we as a people owe them a vote of thanks for the privilege extended us in visiting them." Josiah had a special love for trees. At Hoops, Josiah's fruit trees were a top seller, appealing to new homeowners in America's growing suburbs. An 1870s record book shows old order sheets with the words "send at once" and "immediately" handwritten on the receipt. After mastering packaging and shipping, the nursery could boast of sales to nearly every state in the Union, and customers even included President Grover Cleveland at the White House. By the late 1800s, the nursery was the #1 grower of peach trees. Like his friend Townsend, Josiah's botanical writing was geared toward encouraging a love for growing plants and trees. Josiah regularly wrote botanical articles for the New York Tribune, and he also wrote a book called Book of Evergreens. And in terms of posterity, Asa Gray named the plant Hymenopsis hoopsii, commonly known as owl's claws, for Josiah Hoops. This plant is a marvelous native mountain wildflower, offering large golden yellow flowers all summer long. The bloom is made up of long, drooping petals, resembling owl's claws, and a button-like center cone. Josiah Hoops died on January 16th, 1904. HB&T closed for good in the 1940s. And today is the birthday of the Russian botanist Dmitry Ivanovsky, who was born on this day, November 9th, 1864. In 1892, Dmitry researched the cause of an infection called wildfire in tobacco plants in Crimea. Dmitry made a startling discovery when he learned that even after running through a filter, sap from an infected plant could still infect healthy plants. Dmitry's testing led to the realization that the cause was something smaller than bacteria. A few years later, Martinus Beijerinck would call the filtered infectious substance a virus, and Dmitry's infection is now known as the tobacco mosaic virus. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we owe a debt of gratitude to botanists like Dmitry Ivanovsky and Martinus Beijerinck and all the rest of the virology pioneers. In Unearthed Words, Here's a quote from the Welsh poet and writer Dylan Thomas, who died on this day, November 9th, 1953, at the Chelsea Hotel in New York. He'd consumed 18 straight martinis. Nothing grows in our garden, only washing and babies. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Urban Garden Design by Kate Gould. This book came out in 2019, and the subtitle is Transform Your Outdoor Space into a Beautiful and Practical Escape. In this book, the award-winning garden designer Kate Gould offers refined solutions and crazy good ideas for urban gardens. I appreciate Kate because she loves the challenge of small spaces, and she's a total maximizer in terms of her approach to design and plant selection. Kate is also passionate about helping her clients create a garden that is both personal and unique. And one of Kate's superpowers is connecting the outside design back to the home's interior to create a cohesive feel. This book is a stunning guide for gardeners who are keen to transform small and awkward outdoor spaces into beautiful and practical places. This book is 176 pages of spot-on guidance for gardeners who want to transform their little piece of heaven in the city into a private escape from the world. You can get a copy of Urban Garden Design by Kate Gould and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $4, which makes it another wonderful option if you have to play Secret Santa to a gardener in your life. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is the birthday of the American astronomer, astrophysicist, and author Carl Sagan, who was born on this day in Brooklyn, New York on November 9th, 1934. Carl helped explain space to the masses through his articles, books, and popular public television series, Cosmos. Here on Earth, gardeners delight in his words about the natural world. Carl said, "We are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it is forever." He also said, "A book is made from a tree. It's an assemblage of flat, flexible parts, still called leaves, imprinted with dark, pigmented squiggles. One glance at it, and you hear the voice of another person, perhaps someone dead for thousands of years. Across the millennia, the author is speaking clearly and silently inside your head, directly to you. Writing is perhaps the greatest of human inventions, binding together people, citizens of distant epochs who never knew one another. Books break the shackles of time, proof that humans can work magic." And then finally, there's this one of my favorites. "The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.